Let me just say, there's no cookie cutter solution. Every neighborhood is different. And as a mayor, I think you have to sit down and find out exactly what a city needs. One of the first things I'm going to do when I become mayor is look at our city's budget and scrub it. Inside out, upside down. I want to know where every nickel, dollar, penny is, so that as I begin to define what my priorities are, when I talk about education and contributions to education, I have to know how we're spending our dollars. And I know some people won't be pleased and others will. When I start defining that the first investment has to be in our school system, and then it has to be about creating jobs and opportunities. And so that means you've got to offer incentives to businesses to come and help us develop neighborhoods and communities like Sandtown, Winchester. But here's something that I must say, because everybody has a tendency to look, or most people have a tendency to look at Sandtown, Winchester, and those neighborhoods as people who are just poor and in real trouble. And that's not the reality of Sandtown. While there are some people there, many who are suffering from drug addiction and so forth, you also have families that have been there and people who bought homes 40 years ago, and they want the same thing as folks who live in other parts of our city. We've neglected certain areas of our city. There are not supermarkets there, so we need to create them. They're not technology centers there, so we need to fix that. And there's a group up in the Sandtown, Winchester area that's going to be focusing on a digital community up there. And so it just means the leadership has to be able to wrap your arms around the entire city. Sandtown is just an investment waiting to happen. I walked around Sandtown with Dr. Wilson, who's a pastor up there, and it was interesting. And he's engaged another developer. But before he shared with me that he had engaged another developer to work with him, he came and he showed me these plans that he had for Sandtown. And the first thing I looked at him, I said, he says, I want to have a men's center here. I said, well, what would that do? He said, well, that's for folks to drop in. I said, but what sustains it? And so it's our responsibility as leaders to share the opportunities of how you can sustain a community, how you grow a community, because people are willing. They just need the resources to be able to do it. Well, I think we need to reduce our property tax, but let's be sensible about how we're going to reduce property taxes. This was a city built for 1 million people, now down to 620,000. This was a city where we had 13 senators representing our city at the state level. Now we're down to 5 1/4. Our first responsibility has to be around how we grow this city. If you got something like close to 30,000 board of houses, 16,000 of them belonging to the city, the question has to become, how do you rid yourself of all those board of houses, and how do you take hold of your community in a way that you can enhance it so that it grows and becomes an asset to the entire state of Maryland? And so I began by looking at, do we go back to some of the things, the policies were in place before, like under William Donald Schaefer when we had dollar house programs? Do we create a land bank where we bank our properties and clear the properties and give those to people who can actually buy them and own them? Do we create special incentive taxing districts for areas that are so depressed, where properties aren't on the rolls, and say, if you're going to be living in this area, instead of paying this property tax because we need you to make a commitment over the next 10 to 15 years to do that, then you don't get the same tax rate. Maybe we lower your tax rate. The other thing that we can look at is the tax incentive incremental projects that are coming back online. Instead of just letting that money go back into the city's budget, why not set those projects aside and say, well, let's put that money directly into reducing property taxes. I'm going to set up a property tax reduction commission because, again, I want the best ideas and the bright ideas and the ones that will work to make this city a great city. We're always looking at maintaining a AAA bond rating. I sit on University of Maryland Medical Systems Board, and we've done some really great things in development. Now, we want to maintain a good bond rating, and we do, but it may not necessarily be a AAA bond rating. We do our development, our expansion, our growth of our hospital. We want to make sure that the bond rating never slips to a certain level. But when you're talking about creating new opportunities in Sandtown and other neighborhoods where they don't, you have to take the risk. You have to take the risk. So I'm a risk taker, And I'll take the risk in terms of our bond rating to develop those communities and neighborhoods and offer those incentives to developers and community folk who want to help us develop those neighborhoods. I mean, I won't put us at risk in such a way that we won't be able to again, increase tax incremental financing or opportunities for folks to do business in our city.